We're going to be talking about the politics of things, and definitely you've heard by now that a certain Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, Energy Minister, has his name submitted as the running mate for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, flag bearer of the NPP. But we're going to be looking at the salient details of all of this. What does it mean? A male-male ticket versus a female-male ticket, or a male-female ticket. There are so many dynamics. We'll be joined by a guest shortly, but here with me, Sweetie Abochi, decked in black.
Benjamin Akakbu.
Men in Black is out, the latest in the series. Are you a lady in black?
I am a lady in black.
Is it? No. It's not even Men in Black.
My glasses
it's not Men in Black. It's what's the Bad Boys? Bad Boys.
Oh yes, the latest. I've seen it.
I got confused because Will Smith is in there and he was in Men in Black. So Bad Boys is out, but at least you ain't a bad girl.
So I'm looking forward to understand.
No, I want us to focus.
No.
I want us to stay there. Are you a bad girl or not?
I'm a very good girl, Benjamin. Thank you very much. Yes.
Let me ask the director. Yeah, Forsen, can you confirm that information, please?
Hey, Benjamin Akaku. Anyway, but Benjamin, because I want to deviate from where you are going, I'm looking forward to understanding whether this was a strategy all along. You know, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh's name had been tipped long ago that he was the preferred choice. And then there's that leaked NIB report projecting him as a preferred candidate.
Indeed.
And so did the NPP
Is it all coincidence?
All along?
Is it coincidence?
You know what I mean?
And you know what else I find interesting? Only yesterday, a friend of mine who is in the States was telling me, but wait, what is the strategy of the NPP? Look at the time.
5 months to elections.
Why are they waiting so long? And I mean, and I said that, look, I have said this before. It could be a strategy too, because look, if I look at all of those who were put forward, and we'll be looking at some of those who had been touted as likely pairings for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, all of them come with some baggage. Yeah. Right? And then the point would have been, okay, so can we prolong this so that when we expose this person, the flack, the lampooning will be minimal. Yeah,
the bad press.
The bad press. Yeah. I don't know I'm not a strategist for the NPP, but whatever it is, we're going to be analyzing those issues. Yeah. But quickly, let's look at some of those who were seen to be in pole position to take the slot. And maybe you can walk us through the first few, and I'll take the next set. Okay, so we have in there Prof from the KNUST. Of course, she had come in as an academic and a bit of a surprising add-on. And then we also had, let me just get this in here so that I can see all the dynamics very clearly. So there was the KNUST Vice Chancellor who recently has been confirmed as well. And yeah, there it is. So we had Professor Rita Akosua-Dixon, Vice Chancellor at KNUST, aged 54 from Asante Mampong, and a pharmacist. And of course, it was relevant because she is from the Ashanti region. Then we also had Dr. Henry Kwabena Kukofu, who is 64 years from Adiabeba in Kumasi, and his profession is a lawyer. He's been a special envoy on climate. Then we also had Ursula Owusu-Ekufo. Why is it interesting? The Minister for Communications. She's from Achimota, a lawyer, 59 years. Recently, she was saying that it is disrespectful that people are pitching themselves, huffing and puffing, shoving, trying to get that slot, and that they should allow Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to choose his person. He has done that now. There was also from right here in Osu, Accra, and some, you know, Osu is critical. In fact, Accra is critical. The Greater Accra region is critical. Anytime you lose the Greater Accra region, it may well mean that you are losing the national election as a presidential candidate. There was Irina Toshi Ado Latte from right here in Osu, Accra, 54 years, one of the youngest, and she's also a lawyer. Then there was the 69-year-old Apostle Professor Opoku Onyina, former chairman of the Church of Pentecost from Eduman, and he is a theologian. He was obviously overlooked. Then there was Akosia Frema Osei Opare, Chief of Staff, Office of the President, 77 years, one of the oldest from Wiemwase, a lecturer. And then we had the last two. Now we're going to focus here a bit. 60-year-old Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. Now, do you know the interesting bit there? Educhum was deputy to Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. Then he became substantive minister. Yeah. Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh was sent off, carted off to the energy ministry. So it was basically someone against his former deputy. And he is an educationist, of course, aged 60. But let's look at the Minister for Energy, whom we now know has been selected. Of course, it awaits the approval of the National Executive Council. Yeah. He is from Pechi number 2, 56 years, and he's the Minister for Energy. He's a medical doctor. Now, it makes for some interesting analysis there because the bit about the economy and heading the economic management team and all of that has come to the fore. How would such a, vice fare? But these are the dynamics. These are the interesting pictures. For me, one of the interesting things, a male-female ticket versus a male-male ticket. And that's the tail of the tape. But let's quickly bring in our guests this morning as we zero in on the major issues. All right, so we'll be bringing in Professor Kobi Mensah. He joins the conversation. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Absolutely beautiful morning. How are you doing?
I am very well. It's a pleasure having you. We also have Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, a CDD fellow, joining the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
It's really good having you join this conversation. So, gentlemen, bibiaba. Something is coming, something is coming. That thing has finally come. I just want your brief assessments of this candidate that has been selected, whether you were surprised in any way, and what, on the very surface of things, this means. Professor Kobi Mensah, I've seen you, for example, posting on X about what this would mean, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh pairing with Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. But I'll start with you, Doc, on the other end, in terms of what your assessment is of how things have gone. Dr. Osai-Kwapong.
Yes, good morning once again. Well, I am not particularly surprised. I think that anyone who has followed at least the conversation on social media, I have been of the opinion that there has been this both subtle and overt campaign for the energy minister. And so at a certain point, you started getting this, at least I started getting this impression that there are certain key voices, there are certain key faces who are really trying to project and essentially make a case for him as the potential running mate for the vice president. So I wasn't particularly surprised that yesterday his name came up as the candidate or the person whom the vice president has submitted his name for consideration, especially too on the back of the NIB poll/survey last week, that this just became a confirmation of some of the things that I have observed, in following this development in the party very closely. There are some signals from the Ashanti region that I suspect went into the decision on settling on a running mate from the Ashanti region. I mean, of course, the Ashanti region is the biggest base of support for the party. And so, as Professor Jampo has, said previously, they will still vote for the NPP anyway. But I also think that given some of the things that I had observed from some of their polls, and other surveys. So if you go back to Afrobarometer around 9, if you look at in 2022, if you look at Global Info Analytics, if you look at Professor Smart Sapong's poll, particularly on voting intentions and the number of would not vote undecided that you were seeing in the Ashanti region, I became of the opinion that you needed someone from the region that could help you deal with some of the signals of apathy that were coming through some of these surveys and polls. And if you look at the names, for me, he is the candidate that, in my personal opinion, could help you bridge some of that gap and help you deal with some of those issues and challenges in the region.
Right. Professor Kobi-Mensah, what's your take on that? I know you saw this coming. You forecast this, but what exactly do you make of it now that it has actually happened, awaiting the approval of the National Executive Committee?
All right, thank you. Let me say hi to John. And then also, you see me in my tie. My provost, Professor Ofori, is actually having his inaugural. So we're excited here. We're inviting all of you there. Okay, now, clearly, I wouldn't say that I particularly predicted it, because I think it was obvious. A lot of people had actually, sort of expected, like John said, a NAPO's, candidature. Why? Because, if you look at the park of the people that actually came out, the list, certainly he was the one, standing tall. Why am I saying that? NAPO has actually worked for this party since students' days, all right? He's been there, for a very long time as a student, politician, or if you want to call it that way. He had actually served in his constituency for quite some time now, and one of the people who have a very stable constituency, in terms of popularity, even when the majority leader's popularity was actually waning, and NAPO has a very strong hold over his constituency. Don't forget where he's coming from. You have a very powerful stakeholder, in this particular space. And so certainly you're going to have some kind of contribution in terms of voice, coming from certain quarters that you can't actually ignore. And then, of course, he has actually held two powerful ministries. I mean, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Energy, regardless of your position, whether you think that he performed or not. I mean, these are prominent positions he's occupied. So no doubt he's one of the, pillars of the political party that we are talking about, the NPP. And so for me, and I also look at it from that perspective that he has the drive. If you look at those, that were listed, I can actually tell you that NAPO has a certain, a certain oomph. He has a certain drive. You might like it or not. You probably might think that is a negative energy, but no doubt that everybody knows that he's an action guy. Take it or leave it. And so, if I compare all those people that have been mentioned and their kind of profile, I think that we were expecting that NAPO would be the running mate to be carrying what do you call it, the flag bearer.
Okay, let me now bring in the Deputy Secretary for the NDC, Mustafa Gbande. He joins us on phone. Mustafa, good to have you on the program. So, the Energy Minister has been presented to the President as the choice of the grassroots of the party to pair Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia for the elections 2024. How does that make you feel? And I'm talking about the whole NDC. I mean, they are your biggest opponents come December 2024. And Mustafa is on Zoom. Mustafa, how does all this make you feel?
Okay, so thank you very much and good morning to other intellectuals on the other side. We congratulate him, and we in the NDC were not surprised because obviously for a politician, there would be a calculation of regional representation. So we believe that NAPO's choice represents more of a regional balance other than an issue of competence and credible track record. In fact, it is good that the NPP have chosen him from Ashanti region. We all know that he was in the race with Aduchum, who are all former ministers of education. And so obviously, if you look at the time that Aduchum came into the political scene, and if you compare that to NAPO, who have been around from those days to Parliament, Ministry of Education, and all of that, then you will obviously, as a grassroots party, believe that NAPO should be placed ahead of Aduchum. Also because Napo is currently the Minister of Energy, who is a money bag for if you want to take the government. And so in terms of leveraging on financial resources...
What do you mean by money bag, Mustafa?
Well, I mean, we all know the scandals that have hit the Ministry of Health. We all know that. It's not hidden. If you take a Minister of Education and if you take a Minister for Energy, you would obviously go for the Minister of Energy because he is the money bag. We all know that. Now, ahead of that,
Mustafa, just hold. You just said Ministry of Health. You mentioned health somewhere.
No, I said Ministry of Energy.
You mistakenly mentioned health. But what do you mean? What do you mean by this money bag thing? It's not so clear. The fact that he's a Minister of Energy does not... How does he become Mr. Moneybags?
We'll come to that conversation.
No, let's come to that now. Let's come to that now.
Of course, we all know the conversation around the deals that have been signed at the Ministry of Energy.
Like which one?
We know that...
Like which one?
The Cosmos Energy, the one that involved Talo, recently signed. You knew what was around it. And so we cannot pretend we don't know.
I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that today, I just mentioned it in passing, but we will come to elaborately assess who Napo is. We all know that his selection is not on the basis of competence, because if you look at competence, he solved not a single problem in the Ministry of Energy. We all know that.
So just clarify for me. Are you then saying that you are impugning? Basically, you are suggesting that he was chosen not on the back of credibility or what he has brought to the table, but because he has the support of the grassroots. Clarify for me. And you're also saying...
Not the grassroots. He has the support. Obviously, he's coming from the Ashanti region, which is NPP's stronghold. But apart from that, it is not on the basis of merit in terms of track record, in terms of credibility, in terms of performance. You and I know that if you look at all President Akufo-Addo's ministers, Napo is one of the worst performing ones. You know that, and I know that. So, he is the one that spearheaded the implementation of the raw free senior high school policy we are battling with today. Good policy, wrongly implemented. Napo was leading it. If you look at the Ministry of Energy today, how much does it cost an ordinary Ghanaian to lose home appliances, to incur high cost of energy in terms of inability of government to deal frontally with the Dumso issues? And so clearly, Napo wasn't selected on the basis of competence. He wasn't selected on the basis of experience. He wasn't selected on the basis of track record. It is just merely on the basis of regional balance. He's from Ashanti region. That is how the NPP have used Ashanti region for the very wrong reasons of political expedience.
This is someone who has been in parliament for about 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 2004 or 2008, thereabouts, when he came through. And you're saying experience. But just to clarify this for me, so you're saying that on the back of his reputation, this makes him an easy or soft target for the NDC. It appears you've started hitting him very early, even before the confirmation.
There's nothing easy in the 2024 election. But when a political party recycles incompetence, when a political party recycles non-performance for the purposes of political sloganeering and expedience, then it is for the public to judge. Napo has been in parliament for over 20 years. Yes. Has he justified that in the positions he's held, both from Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and today Ministry of Energy? Has he impressed you? Has he been able to solve the problems that confronted those ministries? Napo is the manufacturer of Adumse, which is an amendment to what we call Dumso. People are testaments of the fact that they are confronted with Dumso, which is a challenge, a national challenge. We are not spinning to blame who, but at a time we needed solution. Ghana needs solution to an energy crisis. He has been the minister. He hasn't done anything. So how do you promote such an incompetent person to now become a vice president? It means that we are heading to doom. And so at the back of this, the NDC believes that yes, it's a good selection. It also means that we will then compare Napo and Professor Jenana Opoku, which at the right time will come to your table and will speak to the credentials. But in the meantime, we are not so worried about Napo's appointment. We believe that it's a recycle plant, incompetence to incompetence and arrogance. That is what the NPP have just done for political purposes. Let's select somebody from Ashanti region who will be able to get a lot of votes from Ashanti region at the back of failure to deliver, failure to develop Ashanti region, which is the stronghold of the NPP. Let us select somebody. And I think that is failing on the ground, you know.
All right, Mustafa, thank you for those thoughts. Let's get to some of our other guests.
Yes, let me come to Dr. Osai Kwapong. Doc, in terms of strategy, I mean, it's just 5 months to elections now. It means that if the energy minister is eventually named and announced to the public that he's the preferred choice as running mate to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he has to resign. And what Mustafa is saying that he was selected because of his appeal to from the Ashanti region, would that be so bad? And if this is a strategy, what is wrong with first the timing and the choice of this man because of where he comes from, the Ashanti region? How do we marry all these issues?
Well, in terms of political strategy, it is not a bad political strategy. As I said, if you look at some of the signals from the Ashanti region, and then even just real quick, I mean, our political parties, or at least if I look at the NPP, they've always tried to do the regional balance over the years. So whenever, they've always had a presidential candidate from the southern part of Ghana. They've balanced the ticket then with a candidate from the northern part of Ghana. And so when Dr. Bawumia was selected, I always said then this time the regional balance will be the other way around. Definitely they would pick a candidate from the southern part of Ghana. But if you again look at some of the signals from the Ashanti region, which is your biggest base of support, if you go all the way back to 1996, and you average the total share of NPP's votes that comes from the Ashanti region, it's about a third. The least they've gotten is 27% of the total from Ashanti in 2020. And you need a certain minimum to ensure that you can get to that.
Did you just say 27%?
Yes, 27%.
You mean
so
the national picture?
So if you take all their national votes together and you see the share that comes from Ashanti region,
okay.
In 2020 it was 27%, but it's always ranged anywhere between 27 and 31% since 1996, right? And you need a certain, you want to guarantee a certain minimum of that share of the vote. And if you pick on these signals that I'm talking about, then Ashanti region comes into very sharp focus in this election. And so for me, as a matter of political strategy, you want to show up your base. You want the kind of candidates that would get you the most return from who you select to be the running mate. But at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that, I mean, at the end of the day, voters vote for the person who is on top of the ticket, right? It doesn't mean that the running mate cannot help. It doesn't mean that the running mate cannot help you make the case. But in this election, though, I can see why you want to make sure that your what we've always been calling your well bank, shows up and show up in their numbers for you. So for me, it's not a bad political strategy to be aware of some of these signals and find a way to respond to it to make sure that you are getting or you are guaranteeing the political returns that you generally get from your region with the biggest support for your party.
And in terms of some of the assertions that Mustafa Gbande made about he's only been selected, I mean, he's not selected based on competence. So first, let me find out from you, how does all the things that Mustafa Gbande said sit with you?
I mean,
calling him a money bag and all that, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't expect that the opposition would rise up and cheer for the selection of a candidate by highlighting their positives, whatever they are. Obviously, they are going to highlight the things that they believe is a potential liability. Right. Yes, the Minister of Energy. I mean, if you go, I'm sure there will be challenges that they can point to, things that they feel does not make him, or at least makes him vulnerable to how they go about campaigning. But I'm sure in the Vice President's mind, he's also picking the person who can best partner him, one, for the purposes of the election, but also in the event that they do win, picking him also as the person who can best partner him to help him, govern. So I'm sure he's weighed all the pros and cons of the candidacy of someone like the energy minister. And at the end of the day, he sincerely believes that the positives outweigh the negatives. And therefore has settled on him as his candidate. But I do expect that the opposition would highlight some of those negatives. Already, you've seen videos of certain inartful statements that he's made in the past already popping up on social media, and I expect that to continue. But they are I'm sure the party is fully aware of that and already have, a strategy to combat that, which they should. It's part of elections, it's part of politics.
Okay, we can go to other guests now.
Professor Kwame-Mensah, what's your take on that? It appears the onslaught has already started, even before the NEC confirms Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. But justified? Let's reflect on the comments of Mustafa Gbande.
Well, obviously, I couldn't actually, comment on that because that's an opinion that he holds, for the NPPs.
Is that an opinion you share on any front?
No, of course, I would actually put it differently. Clearly, there are some informal, grapevine information that we've heard in terms of NAPO's support to the flag bearers, course. And we have heard quite a number of people had contributed. But of course, in the grapevine, he probably was in the pole position having contributed. But that is not what we can actually admit because that is an informal information. I'm not privy to, I haven't actually seen any evidences of that. So I couldn't actually comment on that. But in terms of strategy, I would actually depart from John's position on a number of reasons. One, the NPP's own claim that they are resolving this. And remember, when people had said that perhaps Bawumia wasn't the best candidate, majority of the NPP's defense has been that if Bawumia is not selected, they're going to be still pinned up as a canestake, as a Shanti political party. And so to them, if they don't select Bawumia, people would say, oh, that's the status quo. You always use the North, and then you ditch them. And so they thought that even, if for nothing at all, to sort of clean up that particular image, they have to actually put Bawumia there. And I have always consistently said, you're wrong. In terms of strategy, I don't certainly agree with what you call regional balance. And that has actually been typical MPP approach going forward. I mean, when Kufuor actually selected, Aliyu Muhammad, that would have been it because exactly the same purpose, all right? They said that they wanted to show the country that it was unified, North and South balance. Now, if you had actually done that, the assumption is that you would have achieved that nationalistic posture, or people should have actually perceived you as nationalistic as opposed to sectionist. But you keep repeating the same thing. It means that you haven't solved the problem. You keep doing the same thing. I keep saying that the idea that the NPP is actually Ashanti or Akan, if you broaden it, it is not because of a certain candidate coming from a certain place. I mean, look at the NDC. they do not actually say they have to balance the ticket. They choose their running mate, regardless of where they come from. All right. Now, you haven't actually had the NPP, attribute the same characteristics that the NDC attribute to the NPP to NDC. They haven't said that they are anti-Muslim or anti-Christian. They haven't said that they're anti-guns or anti-Nzimas, etc. But why is it that you always?
But the NPP hasn't said it is anti-anything either.
No, that's the point I'm saying. According to NPP, the NDC keeps saying that they are anti-North. They use the North and they dump them, and they want to solve that particular image. That's what they claim. And I'm saying it's a wrong understanding of what is happening, because if that is the case, the NDC hadn't chosen a Ga before. Are they anti-Gas? But they win handsomely in Greater Accra. All right. At least if you look at the typical Ga areas, NDC wins. They haven't actually chosen Ewe before, because Rawlings was just a default. All right. Would you say that they are anti-Ewes? So don't actually take responsibility for a propaganda if it's the case. But of course, it might not be propaganda, because it could be your own behaviors. And I have said time and again, when the former finance minister was given the opportunity, or had opportunity to brand or to label a budget, he kept on saying, Obatampa this, Obatampa that, what do you call? So many, languages that actually slip into Ashanti. So why wouldn't people have that perception? If you thought that it was a propaganda, you are actually, deepening it. That's my point. So the point I'm making is that it was a bad strategy if you want to solve that particular issue, which you probably had opportunity to solve earlier with Kufuor's elections, all right? Now, you go and take, Napo, who is actually also Ashanti, and you want to solve a certain image. Strategic will mean long-term, right? So strategically, if you take Napo and Bawumia doesn't win this election, what happens the next election? Certainly, you're having someone who is very ambitious. Nobody can doubt the idea that Napo is aiming at presidency. Now, in the next election, you're going to have a Napo candidacy. Haven't you gone back to square one? Exactly what you want to solve. So for me, and even when you talk about, the current election, if you want to win the current election, and people have said time and again, Ashanti is for you. You would terribly lose Ashanti if they believe and you believe that you had done absolutely nothing in that particular region.
Right.
But even you could have some kind of figureheads to actually argue your case out for you. Why should you go for Ashanti? I would rather go for Toshi, because that's exactly, because you want to demonstrate that you're not fully Ashanti or you're not Akanistic. You go for Toshi, and then you're saying that you are using that to address. Now you could talk about a proper, a deviation of what people had been accusing you of, all right? But you don't go for the same thing, knowing that in the next round, if you don't win, Napo is going to be on the ticket. You go back to the same issue.
Okay.
You know that you need a certain toss-up state, all right, to actually shore up your support. Why do you go for your base that you are likely to actually win that base? I don't get it.
Okay, I have an interesting bit for you. Just make it brief so that we can also bring in Mustafa Gbande again and go back to Doc. Are you saying then, two quick questions. One, that this Ashanti move could backfire? And two, I want to find out from you, do you think the NPP has to settle on Napo because maybe there is a lack of quality in there? There's been talk about we have the men. Just link those two for me, quickly.
Now, I have said on record that the current election is NPP's bad one. I mean, in terms of leadership. You don't select, Bawumia, someone who is very fresh in our minds in terms of delivery. He's failed. He has not answered the economic questions. Since we started getting into this economic downturn, Bawumia had never spoken on economy. It is very fresh in people's minds, all right? Then you go for Napo, whose personality is challenging. Nobody can actually doubt that. I really dread the combination in terms of even their camps, all right? In the elections, in the campaigning is a very heated period. I have no doubt there's going to be some kind of chaotic movement between the two. Unless they can sit down and work out really smooth working relationship, you're going to have a clash, all right? So I don't see how that really inure to the benefits of the NPP in terms of strategy. I would rather do something different. If indeed what they had said were their aims of solving some of these image issues, which I think they're actually beating themselves up for nothing. And then, of course, the strange idea of regional balance, really, in Ghana, I think that this is a Nigerian issue. In Ghana, people have actually chosen candidate South-South. By the way, choosing Napo doesn't mean South. South, you have Volta region. South, you have Greater Accra region. You have consistently chosen Ashanti, and then you say South-South. That is not South-South, all right?
Okay.
So I think that they probably could have been bold enough to shore up their bases in elsewhere that they are very weak at. I mean, in terms of the swing regions, if you really want to show a certain character departing from what people have actually been criticizing you. The front line was weak, to be honest. You know, in terms of the candidate that they chose for flag bearer was weak. I think that, you know, Alan Chamanti would have been extremely competitive for the NDC. The runner at the front line
for the NPP.
For the NPP, Alan could have been very competitive against the NDC. All right. Now, if you have a vice presidential candidate, frontliners, I don't think that Educhum would even cross your mind. Somebody who's actually pretended over very, very terrible education ministry. How do you really select Educhum? I don't get it. All right. So I think that this batch of MPPs, frontliners, completely weak.
Okay. So for context, before I go to Dr. Osai Kopon for my next question, Professor Kobi-Mensah is just saying that the front line is weak, his personality is challenging. Now this morning we posted on our socials, do you think Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh as running mate to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is the force the NPP needs to break the 8? And in about 2 hours, we have over 1,200 comments coming in. And I just want to read the first 3 that I saw when I opened the comment section. One says, I am an NPP member, but he doesn't deserve this slot because of his behavior. He doesn't respect. That is my fear. Second person, Kennedy, saying that just that his talks are very harsh. He doesn't respect others when he speaks. If he changed, fine, for the NPP. But if he doesn't change, he's not the right person for the party. Seriously, no. And the third comment says, not at all. Bawumia will not find it easy working with this man. He won't even obey him at all. So my question to you, Dr. Osai Kopon, does this ticket, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia paired with Napo, appeal to the Ghanaian voter, the voting population?
Time will tell, and we would see that. One quick thing, though, that I want to say in respect to what Prof said in terms of the regional balancing, right? I mean, the parties would not necessarily say that, but if you look at, for example, since 2000, and let's say on the NDC side, and the selection of the late Professor Mills as the candidate, you would see that all of his running mates came from, quote unquote, the southern part of Ghana. When former President John Mahama became the president, it became the other way around. So all I'm saying is that you tend to see our parties trying to do that balancing, even if they don't say it overtly. You see that through their actions. The other thing too is for the NPP especially, that regional balancing has actually paid off. If you look at their performance in the northern part of Ghana, you see a remarkable improvement. So that strategy has paid off more political dividends for them as a party than, in my estimation, looking at the data, it has for the NDC. But, Napo being the best candidate or the best person to pair Dr. Bawumia and give him that national appeal, I think time will tell. Eventually, like I keep saying, people vote for whoever is on top of the ticket. They're going to vote not for the vice president, they're going to vote for the president. Yes, the vice president, can help marshal up those votes. And at the time, as the campaign goes on, and particularly how they respond in terms of the Bawumia campaign, how they deal with a lot of the things that the opposition would point out, especially as I keep describing it in polite terms, some of the inartful things that he has expressed in response to issues that have come up. I'm sure they'll try to use it as a liability for him and the Bawumia campaign. And how they deal with it ultimately is what would make this a national appeal or a little more challenging for them. But time will tell.
Okay.
Mustafa, I have an interesting question for you. I saw a comment come through, and I know better, but I just wanted to run it by you. There's this one that says, let me just get to it. One dash Stinkone says, Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang or Jane Nana Opoku Agyemang has not achieved as greatly as Napo, that in terms of education, right, he has achieved better than she has. I don't know whether she's referring to his term as education minister or educational academic achievements. But on that front, how would you respond to someone like this who says on the academic front, Napo is better to serve the nation than Prof?
Well, thank you very much. I think basically, with the greatest of respect to that individual, he would have better helped the conversation if he took us to the indicators of measurement. Say, is it about free senior high school? Is it about infrastructure? Is it about stability of education itself? And in the vague manner in which the question is put, I'm not too sure where we are starting the conversation from. But I'm certainly aware that the NDC was voted out of power for some reasons of unsatisfactory performance. That is, if we are to assume that is the case, and voted in President Akufo-Addo with a belief that he is coming to solve all those problems. Now we'll get to a conversation to say, have they solved the problem in the last 8 years? Have they made it better? In the last 8 years, are teachers comfortable? In the last 8 years, what is the situation in terms of our quality education, in terms of infrastructure, even in terms of feeding students? What do we have today? In terms of policy implementation, have we been able to, put in a policy that is working effectively? The answer is no. We all know that it is no. When it comes to education, in the last 8 years, it has been poor performance. It is worsening today because students do not even have curricula to read. Today, if you go to schools, teachers are so uncomfortable because they can't bear the cost of living. Today, if you go to schools, our science laboratories are not working. Under Napo, he actually awarded a contract for Wi-Fi in secondary schools when we don't have computers in the secondary school. So it's a conversation that is very broad. Now, the NPP would have to accept the fact that in the last 8 years, when you look at Ashanti region, where is their stronghold? Why I believe that they will select Napo for the purpose of political expedience is that Ashanti region is their stronghold. No two ways about it. They've shown loyalty to the NPP. They are actually the reason why the NPP is in government today. Now, when you look at the West economic situation, Ashantis are business-minded people. They own small businesses. So the much more people who are affected in this country are Ashantis. All of their businesses have collapsed. Recently, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, was in Ashanti region. You saw the venom with which Ashanti business people spoke to the Vice President. Napo was in government in the last 8 years. He was actually a cabinet minister. So what influence does it bring to bear when it comes to Ashanti region? Today, the people are feeling that when it comes to measuring comfort in terms of their own government, they can't ride home with it. If you look at the micro effects, all the by-elections that were held in Ashanti region, Napo was present. All of these big wigs from Ashanti region were present. What was the response from the grassroots? Clearly, you will see apathy, which means that the people are not happy. Clearly, you will see typical NPP people speaking against their own government. It means that the government have not done anything in Ashanti region. So what is Napo going to change in the last 6-7 months if he is made a running? So I mean, President Akufo-Addo have not done a good thing to the NPP. He destroyed the image of the party in terms of its credibility. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia have not shown seriousness. We all knew that. And so I wasn't expecting anything different from his choice. He, like Dr. Kobe Mensah said, he should rather be worried because the person he's choosing as his running mate will do him out of the equation at the right time. We all know that, and you will see it happen. Just keep this message, and you come and call me a prophet. It is not really about Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia becoming a president. It's about trying to position people so that we are back to square one. That is what it is. NPP is like that, and that is what they have always done.
All right. Let's proceed. Professor Kobe Mensah, let's talk about the impacts that this late announcement is going to have on our government, on our quest for development. I mean, an interim minister of energy would have to be appointed. He would have to resign a by-election. Cabinets will also have to make some administrative adjustments. Talk to me about the impact this late announcement and subsequent confirmation of Napo, who has all these, roles that he's currently playing.
See, I think that you know that the president has already checked out. I mean, it's not a post-election. The president checked out long ago. He said that we should wait for the next person. I mean, he is John the Baptist. We should wait for the Jesus Christ, to take us out of the mess. I mean, right. Another example to show the president has checked out already. The secretary to the president is now ambassador at large, all right?
Right.
So gradually they are departing, and I'm sure the president himself is just hanging on. So as we say, the political balance, he's now a lame duck because you now have, the one who actually holds the power. Now it's about everybody trying to appease, Bawumia, and then of course now Napo. So honestly, I don't think that we are actually having a very serious government that is prepared to solve the problem. Now, to December, we shouldn't actually expect any serious stuff going on. It's not going to be campaign and campaign and campaign. So for me, I take it that the government has already checked out already. They're just waiting for the next person to come. So it's not about Napo's...
Are you saying that the government doesn't care about these administrative adjustments that they would have to make if...
They're going to make that. They're going to make that for political purposes, all right? And of course, as structure, structurally, they're supposed to fill the vacancies.
Right.
They're going to bring people who they wanted to reward. You're going to see quite a lot of these things without possible, positive impact on the economy, but rather at their end. So I don't really hold any strong feelings about a positive impact on us. It's about on them rather than on us.
Dr. Zakwapong, do you agree in terms of our development or democratic development, the impact that this late announcement will have on our economy in our development trajectory?
No, I mean, it's the years of, usually in campaign years, the key developments you tend to see are usually the infrastructure developments, right? They're trying to catch up on stalled road projects, things like that. So I don't see these administrative adjustments that have to be made as per the rules making much of a difference or stalling development between now and December. We only have about maybe 6 months to the election. I don't see that bringing us to a halt because these administrative adjustments have to be made.
Right.
Maybe my final bit to you, gentlemen. There's a male-female ticket and then a male-male ticket. What do you make of the quality of both of them side by side? And then again, there are those who have said that, listen, for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, if he doesn't become president this time, that's it for him. He may not get the nod of the NPP again. The question is Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh the person of all those that we saw that can actually help him achieve that, become president? And I'll start with you, Prof, before I go to Doc, and then wrap with Mustafa for his final comments. Prof.
Okay, Ben, I think that the die is cast for NPP. I have never failed to say that. I don't think that there was going to be those presented, anybody who could actually help save this government. I mean, from my theory, in political marketing, you have at least 3 variables that you're presenting to the electorate. Your party's own strength, based on what they've done in the past, based on the current leadership structure, etc. This party has already broken up. You have Alan Tremantin going his own way, depleting the party stock. All right. 2, you have your delivery and policy positions. Now, go back to town and ask people whether they are convinced that this government has delivered. Absolutely not. There's a unified consensus that they have failed, especially based on what they have said that they were going to do. They didn't do it. All right. 3, you have your candidates, i.e., your presidential candidate, the flag bearer, and then the running mate to shore up your chances. Now, these 2 candidates, I am afraid, in strategy, they don't cut it. Absolutely they don't cut it. I mean, you have a Bawumia's character, which it is not stellar as a leader. He's a yes a master person. He hasn't showed any gravitas as a leader. You have him promising so many times and not coming through. He has said so many things that are untrue. He keeps saying Ghana is the first when Ghana is not. People fast check him, and he's not the truth. He's said a lot of policy promises, delivery promises never come through. He's shying away with the signature thing that he signed up to, the economy. So you don't get him as a leader for that. And I'm not sure Ghanaians are convinced about his leadership. You have a certain running mate who is very challenged in terms of his personality. Of course, the 2 ministries that he's actually headed, none of them you can say had performed. So look, the entire team, I don't think that was going to be held by even a running mate. The entire 3 variables that the NPP is presenting, all of them are actually in limbo. There is none of this that is actually capable of actually getting them out of the doldrums. So I didn't believe that it's going to be a very strong ticket in any case.
Okay.
I think your other question, I think I lost it.
So I was asking about, I mean, some have said that this could be the only chance of Dr. Bawumia to be president.
Absolutely. I don't think that you need to be a strategist to actually see through it. And that's why I thought the narrative that they said that, Bawumia was going to actually change the perception, I think in the first place, it was a false narrative. They shouldn't have actually accepted that in the first place. And then you deepen it by having a running mate, if they confirm Napo, who is actually from the same place that you say you want to correct. Strategically, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Doc? Dr. Saikwa?
Yes, right. I mean, if you look at both tickets, at the end of the day, every political party, factors in a whole lot of things and puts their best team, forward. The NDC has done that by pairing former President Mahama with Prof. Nana Jane. The NPP has made all of its calculations and has paired, Dr. Bawumia and, again, with Napo's name coming up, trying to pair them. Today, I find myself disagreeing a lot with Prof. When Prof says, my only point of departure with Prof when he says the die is cast. So if you had asked me this question maybe 3, 4, 5 months ago, I would have shared that sentiment that the die is cast. I've been regularly saying that the political winds seem to be blowing in the direction of the NDC, right? And generally, I still believe that. But there are 2 things that is making me say that it's not as cast, in the sense that, for example, if you look at the Global Info Analytics poll, in as much as it had a whole lot of positives for the NDC, and some serious warning signals for the ruling party, there were 2 questions that made me say, and that is one, on the question of trust, the difference between former President Mahama and Dr. Bawumia was very negligible. If you look at the question of competence, again, the difference between them was very negligible. And then on the back of that came Prof. Smart Sapong's poll that shows quite a lot of people who are undecided, right? And you see this convoluted answer of, if it's party, the preference is NDC, but if it's candidate, the preference is Dr. Bawumia, still with a huge number of undecided voters. For me, when I put those things together, it is an indication that there is enough dissatisfaction with the NPP, but they are still not yet completely sold on the alternative. At least that has been my reading. And so that's my only point of disagreement with Prof, that the die may not be cast as yet, although the political winds seem to be more in favor of the NDC. It's still not in the bag yet.
Right. Mustafa, you have the final word. Your thoughts, and then we're done with this conversation.
Yeah, so I think that basically two key things on the minds of Ghanaians today. The five of us having this conversation, one of the key indicators that affect all of us, our lives, is the quality of living. The NPP gave us free senior high school. That is very good, a policy poorly implemented. But what happened to the economy? What happened to the standard of living? What happened to corruption? Are we saying that because the party has given us free senior high school, it's enough to pay the bills that people cannot handle today? The level of, for the first time, we've had Global Fund. We all know what Global Fund is, assisting Ghana with medical supplies. We left these things to rot at the harbor. That tells you the depth of lack of responsibility that President Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia, by extension, have presided over. Now, the Vice President says, I will not take responsibility. The President says, I won't take responsibility. Should we not hold the cabinet also responsible for the mess, the mismanagement, the lack of performance as to where we are today? We will hold cabinet responsible, and all of these people were in cabinet. The next question, this is the last round for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I mean, I think that, look, if the NPP had settled on, say, Amin Anta, who is the finance minister today, I would believe that it brings some sort of leverage, seriousness to the table.
Right.
If they have chosen a brilliant young man like, say, Abu Jinapor, Minister for Lands, I would say that it brings some fresh energy, it brings some new ideas. Bawumia is a no-no for presidency. Bawumia is a no-no for the NPP itself. He hasn't acquitted himself satisfactory enough. In terms of country, we all know today, in the history of our country, the only vice president who speak and you fact check only to know that is a lie is Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. The only vice president, when people are dying, he cracks jokes with it, is Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So for me, I don't see seriousness in that ticket. And I don't think that if I have to advise as a political practitioner, there is hope in Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as far as the NPP is concerned. There are other young, sharp brains that are coming up. And I think that the generation is looking up to people who are problem-solving oriented. It can be business as usual, recycling incompetence, taking advantage of political parties, and all of that. We have moved past there. Ghanaians want to live comfortably. Ghanaians want to own houses. Ghanaians want to be educated. Ghanaians want to have jobs. Ghanaians want to live long by having healthcare. They are looking for a political party that has a team that can give them these things. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that Bawumia, as a leader of our team, can get the NPP to achieve such an objective. Unfortunately, given his track record and his role in President Akufo-Addo's government.
Thank you, Mustafa. So those who joined us for the conversation, Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande. We also had a CDD fellow, Dr. John Osai Kwapong, and of course, Professor Kobi Mensah, a political marketing strategist. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So here we are. Some interesting comments coming through. I say that, some of the banter will happen. I had my suspicions that Napo would be selected, but we'll leave the assessment to all of us, the people of Ghana, when it comes to D-Day. I mean, now at least we have a fair idea of how it's going to be. Interestingly, both the running mates have headed the education ministry before. You can look at their profiles, you can look at the baggage, you can look at what they bring to bear. Some would also look at continuity.
Yep.
In coming elections and all of that. But we did.
And
And we're observing keenly.
I'm observing with a very curious mind the comments that are coming in this morning under that post of whether Napo would be a great choice for the NPP. People know him, and they know him for a certain character that he doesn't respect, that he's harsh with his words, that he's arrogant. And for some time now, we haven't actually heard him speak. So what, is he being coached? What's happening there? It's just, I'm very curious to understand.
I mean, you would give him his
Some
positives.
Of the comments are showing on your screens right now.
His positives as well, because, I mean, there's no one who is all negative.
Yeah.
He must have his positives. He's a two-time Minister Education, now Energy.
So what did he
do? The question is, does he have what it takes? You know, generally, people will look at so many things, and all of that. But are there other positives to him? People may look at so many dynamics, but I think in the end,
right,
the people will decide.
The people will decide. But before we